Well, I just got done reading An Apple Sleep Experiment, The Thing You Fear Most, and I'm going to be honest, I'm mixed on this chapter. I would say the first half of the chapter. The rest of it, or at least like in the middle when it shows Applejack and doing her little speech, I'm not the biggest fan of. I know it's a reference to the original An Apple Sleep Experiment with the speech at the end, but the Russian sleep experiment speech didn't really last too long. It was short and simple, and it actually had a build up to it. Here, I mean, it had a build up to the only build up it had really was the Kmart Crusaders finding out about Applejack being a killer, and she's the reason that ponies had went missing. But I think a problem I have with this chapter is just that speech comes out of nowhere because we don't even know that they're trying to get a cure for her. We don't even know how Twilight figured that out. Maybe that will get explained in the next chapter. So I'm going to try not to jump to conclusions and be like, oh, this chapter sucks because this didn't get explained, this or that, blah blah blah. Because again, I still got one more chapter to read, and that reading that final chapter, it's the final chapter, so that probably will help with my opinion on this chapter, if I will like it more or hate it more when I read the next one. Well, hate. Well, I wouldn't say hate, but dislike it because there's no way I'm gonna hate this. I hate this chapter. I don't hate it at all. I just feel like some stuff so far, without the full context, with the very final chapter, without the final context, without the context of the final chapter, but with the context of everything else, I say it's okay. Just okay. The more I think about it, and that is just because I do like the build up of the Kingdom Hearts Crusaders finding out about the murders and about Applejack being a killer and being the reason that everyone disappeared. When it gets to Applejack, I don't know, just the speech just comes out of nowhere for me, and it does kind of break her. I don't know. Maybe it should have been about, unless the next chapter starts off with her in the POV before she gets the shot at the end of this chapter, and then we go to the aftermath of it, and then I can probably ignore it. But for now, it's like, when did she decide that she wants to stay that way? Like, yeah, I know. I'm pretty sure that if I remember right, when she killed Lyra, it was at day, and now during this chapter it takes place at night, so she could have had some time. But I don't know, I feel like we need a more indication on that. Plus, it does kind of break that illusion just a little bit, just because it jumps so soon into her being like how that one experiment, that one dude being experimented on in the original Russian sleep experiment, just jumps to that conclusion. I'm the darkest place in your mind, that it's only there, that you only know when you sleep, stuff like that. I get why it's there. I mean, that is an epic part and a very chilling part of how the original The Russian Sleep Experiment ended. And to be fair, this is the 10th chapter, out of 11, 10 out of 11. So yeah, it's near the end, but it's not the very end. And even then, I mentioned it breaks the illusion. It breaks the illusion of Applejack being so sleep depraved that that she just confuses everyone and everything. To have it where she's already like that, just where she's at the, I want to say, final transformation right now is a little weird. I feel like this chapter could have been longer and dedicated more time. You could have had, part of it be with the Kmart Crusaders POV and the rest of it, or some of it be in Applejack's before coming back to the Kmart Crusaders. To be fair, though, I'm probably just jumping ahead because, I guess it does give us some indication of how a long time passed without giving us too much. Because it does seem like this, not chapter, but the story in general wants to be very mysterious about some stuff and only give us clues and hints on certain things and let us figure out the rest, which I do appreciate. But I do think we could have had just a little bit more with this one, just because when we see Applejack, not only is she talking about how she's the thing that Rainbow Dash fears most, which the more I think about it is probably a reference to Rockin' to Insanity, just like the graveyard slash Oak Ridge of dead ponies is, to me at least, feels like a reference to cupcakes. But to have her like right there at that just feels a little off. The speech isn't bad, but I don't know. It does make me wonder, why doesn't she want the cure? It's something like that. It just feels weird. The only thing I got, the only explanation I have, is literally this is the My Little Pony version of the Russian sleep experiment. That's the only explanation I have. And in the original The Russian Sleep Experiment, they didn't want that gas turned off. Whenever it turned off, they wanted it back on. But with Applejack, it's not a gas, and she's not in a room full of it. She just, for the story's knowledge, took the potion. She took the potion as well as being attacked by that heat, not heat, but the drought. Well, yeah, heat, but the drought, it's like that combination is what she had. So why does she not want to be cured? I don't know. I feel like that should have had some explanation. Again, like some things do need to be explained. Not everything, but like some things, something like that, where it's a big key element and such a shift to how she acts. Like she still acts sleep deprived and like she's going completely insane because of it. But this is a big shift from seeing everybody as filthy rich and then as themselves by how the last chapter kind of described at the end, or was hinting at towards the end, getting confused on what she was talking about, not even sure what she's talking about and all that stuff, not even sure what's real and what's not. To that, and then automatically when we see her again in this chapter, which is near the end, to where she's talking about how she's the thing that hides in your sleep, the scariest, deepest part of the thing you fear, the most, but the thing you fear most that is only visible in your sleep, like the original Russian sleep experiment established at the very end. It feels too quick. I dare even say a little rushed. Again, that could go away because the next chapter probably will explain that probably. And I'm trying to save this next complaint I got, from when I talk about the full story, but I'm just going to talk about it briefly and then fully explain it when I get to it, when I talk about the story as a whole. I don't like how Lyra's the only one that we see die. I like it and don't like it at the same time. Just like the more I thought about it, I like and don't like that we don't see Filthy Rich die. It's just a double-edged sword there. A part of it's like, well, that is terrifying, and the only person that we see die isn't the person that we wanted to see die, but it's the person that we don't want to see die. But that does lead a problem, though, which I'll talk about that part. Well, I was going to save that part, but I'll just re-mention it. But if you don't know anything about My Little Pony and you're only reading this because you heard it's, basically, the Russian sleep experiment, or you're just reading it for whatever reason, then you're probably going to be confused and be like, who is this Lyra girl? Because she literally just kind of shows up into the picture. It's nobody that was established to be important or anything like that. Which the more I think about it is probably... Yeah, the more I think about it, that's a big problem for a lot of My Little Pony creepypastas, but to be fair, it's My Little Pony in creepypasta form. I'm pretty sure most of the people who do read the My Little Pony creepypastas have watched the show. Well, there is a good chance that it's just a few that don't know, but I feel like maybe they should just watch the show before reading the creepypasta, because you ain't going to see me reading creepypastas of animes or other shows that I haven't watched because I won't know who is who and whatnot, and if this is in character out of character form. So I guess I can take that criticism away. But she still does just randomly show up in the picture, but I don't know. I feel like we could have seen more of her carnage. But that's probably just my fault because the internet does just, when you look it up, because I did look up the kill count to see if there even was a kill count for when I decided that I will do kill counts for these creepypastas sometime in the future. It did show that 13 ponies died, and they were saying, of course, Lyra and Bon Bon, plus the fan art, as I said many times, have spoiled that they died. Though how they never said, or at least with Lyra, so yeah, that still shocked me. But I heard well, Biceps dies and stuff, and of course Filthy Rich, but they're just off screen. So who did she murder? I doubt I gotta go to the actual story, which, the more I think about it, it could be really scary, and actually kind of, it's still scary, that they're dead. We don't know who, but at the same time, I feel like we could find out some other characters that are dead, aside from Filthy, Lyra, and Bon Bon. I feel like her carnage of how murderous she had gotten could have been shown more, because this isn't the Russian sleep experiment where it's a bunch of documents or intel that you find. It literally, for most of the story so far, or even when I get to the final one, I can already say most of the story is Applejack's POV. So why don't we see more of that carnage? I don't know. I'll go way more into detail about that when I talk about the full story. But that is just something that kind of bothers me a little bit. It doesn't, I don't know if it ruins the story or not so far. Kinda, but not really. It's one of those moments that really does kind of bring the rating down just a bit, just because I feel like, just because of how the story's being told. If it was being told, like, maybe through the eyes of the CMC and Applejack's friends, and every so often we get into Applejack's mind of it, then probably, I don't know, with the way it's told, it's hard to really have it as a full criticism, but yet it's still a criticism, but it's hard to hate it fully. I don't know how I'm going to take any criticisms I give in this one. It's kind of a criticism, but I don't know if it would ever impact the story with how it's being told. It did split itself up into 3 different POVs a lot during the story. The most POV that we saw was Applejack's, though, but then, it would shift to Applebloom and her friends, and Twilight, and a little bit of the other friends, but not too much. So, I don't know. I'll definitely have to read the full story. Well, not read the full story. I'll have to binge read it, and instead of chapter by chapter each week whenever I get the opportunity, just to see how I fully feel about it. But as of now, I'd say a little disappointing, but not too much. Again, because, anything can be disappointing if you look at Google and they just tell you this and that, and then you are like, oh, let's see it, and then it's just like, this is how it's done in there, which is why, even if a spoiler or something, spoiler, no matter big or small, you need to be careful with, because it could ruin how things happen. If you hear something happens in a movie, you go and see it and it happens a certain way, and it's like, well, that's not how I was expecting it to go, because how big of a deal people made it seem online in the reviews and stuff. So really, that's just kind of my fault, really. Even then, I think taking it from that perspective, I probably would want to see more of who died and who lived, who was unfortunate enough for it. And maybe more of her carnage, just because of where the story was headed so far, but I need to go ahead and just leave it at that. Otherwise, I won't have much to talk about when I talk about the full story. But yeah, that's just kind of an issue so far. It isn't, I don't know if it's big or small, it's just kind of an issue I got a little bit. Again, I feel like her carnage could have been shown just a little bit more, but at the same time, I am thankful that it doesn't go overboard with it. and to the point where it's just shock value for shock value. The story does try to have a deep meaning to it, and for the most part, I think it does a good job with that so far. But here at this chapter does kind of ruin it just a little bit more, because it feels like it's trying, at the end here, it feels like it tried too hard to make a big reference to the original The Rest and Sleep Experiment, and I don't think it does a good job with it. That is because of time. It's a 2,000 word chapter, which a lot of information could be put in 2,000 words, or at least I would assume. But it feels like it skipped to get to there, because it's like, well, I just want this many chapters, so instead of, I don't know, when I write a story, I just write, and then I know, I don't have plans on how many chapters, I just know the stuff that I want to happen, and if it lasts a certain amount of time, like if, for example, if a character goes to a house and discovers a ghost is happening, I try to build up to that, and if it lasts like 4 pages, it lasts 4 pages, but if it lasts like 10 or 20, it lasts that long. I kind of just stop when I feel like it's necessary to stop. But this this story so far does seem like it had plans on how many chapters it wanted, or at least to me, especially with this chapter, it definitely feels that way. Like, this chapter was thought of, it needs to have this happen, but it doesn't need to be too long. It's like, okay, I can't expand it. I need to have the Kingmark Crusaders find out Applejack's a killer and about the missing ponies, and then I need to end it as soon as Applejack gets the shot, but I don't need it to drag too long. It's kind of what it feels like. It allows itself to be 2,000 words, but it feels like it doesn't want to be over. I don't know. It's really hard to criticize this story, because I do think it's written very well. And even then, some of the negative stuff I have, like Filthy Rich, never really ruined it for me. But this one, it's hard for me to understand how I feel about it. So yeah, I'm just mixed on how I feel. So far, I'm just going to say this chapter is okay. It has a great build-up. But when we get to Applejack, it feels off to me. I'm going to be honest. It feels off because it feels like it's going a little ahead of itself. It doesn't feel like it's trying to be too smart. It doesn't feel like it's better than everyone. It doesn't feel like it has so much pride in itself that it thinks it's good no matter what. It just feels like it's trying to make a big reference to the Russian sleep experiment, and it doesn't really pay off for me. But we'll go into much more detail about that. We'll go into much more detail about that when I talk about the full story, every chapter in one, when I binge read it and stuff. Until then, again, like I said, I like the build-up of the Kingmark Crusaders trying to find Applejack. I really like how smart Fluttershy was, and that she tried to prevent him from leaving by having her bear friend guard the door, only for him to leave because of honey and he's hungry. I mean, I can see that happening in the show. So that's one compliment I'll give this chapter. It still feels like a My Little Pony episode if it was horror/adult, and I really like that. And also, I can say it takes away one criticism I had from the last chapter. Even though it's not Princess Celestia who did it, it did say that Twilight ordered for more security around, not Equestria, but Ponyville. And I actually like that. I'm glad they included that, because I'm sorry, but you think that if some ponies went missing, they would go and have some security and people looking for them. And thank God, this chapter does mention there's some security. I don't remember if it mentioned if they were looking for him. I think they were looking for him in the last chapters, the more I think about it. Yeah, they were looking. It stated before they were looking for him and trying to find him, but and had no idea where they were, because they weren't finding him and stuff. So yeah, really, that's for now all I got to say about this chapter. It's fine. It's just okay so far. That opinion definitely might change when I finish reading it. I got one more chapter. I'll probably try to get it posted sometime today, probably Thursday, because I really do want to read it and see what happens, but I don't know. We'll see, because I got I got work tomorrow and Thursday. I'm only working 2 days this week, so maybe I should have some time to review it before I got to go to work or when I get back from work. We'll just see. Until then, this is the Gaming Reader. I think this chapter, as I said, is okay. It's fine. Definitely a better build-up than it is an ending to it. And I would say that, yeah, that's, again, my fault. I feel like some of this stuff is my fault for ruining it, for knowing about it. I didn't mean to spoil myself with certain things, but that just happened. But I'm gonna try to just talk about it on its own. I do think the ending here about Applejack bucking her sister into a tree is pretty dark. I appreciate it went that far. I like how, in retrospect, Cupcakes went that far, but this one does it better. But at the same time, I just can't shake that off with Applejack giving that speech, you know, and not wanting to be cured. Because her whole thing, especially because I just thought about it, her whole thing during this chapter was getting revenge on Filthy Rich. So when did she want to just not be cured? I don't know, it's weird. Hopefully that gets explained in the next chapter. Until then, I've already talked about this one enough. I'll talk about it more when we get to when I talk about the full story, because I got a lot to say, but I'm trying not to drag it out too long because I'm trying not to drag this video out too long because I do want to say some of this stuff, this major stuff I have, you know, issues with for the full story, so I don't just put filler and stuff into the other one and all that. Originally, this video series was supposed to be just like shorts, saying a quick opinion, but I found out I had a bit more to say that was longer than just a minute. So, yeah, it turned into this. But, as I said, this chapter, it's okay. It's not bad. Good build-up. Even the middle was really good, you know, being shocked, seeing Rainbow Dash there. I thought Rainbow Dash died for a second. And then I was thinking to myself, wait, no, isn't she in the sequel? But I don't know, because like I said, I only know one thing about the sequel, and that's, I wouldn't say the ending, but who's behind it all. I know about that because because it got spoiled for me. But everything else I don't know, so I thought she was dead. I'm surprised she isn't by how the story describes it. It describes, you know, her face is so bruised, her lips is busted, and it seemed like her jaw was almost broken off her freaking off her mouth by how it's described. Ooh, sounds like she's definitely she's gonna be hospitalized. If she's still alive, then she's gonna be in the hospital a lot longer than that one episode of season 2. Let's be honest, in the Daring Do episode. Oof. But, you know, hopefully the next chapter does fix that issue. Because this one fixed the other issue I had. It didn't fix with the Filthy Rich one. That one just kind of grew on me. But I still got a lot of stuff I got to say about that when I get to it during the full review of the series. But until then, I've been talking enough about this. It's time to go ahead and end it. This is the Gaming Reader. What are y'all's thoughts on this chapter? As I said, I just think it's okay. It might change, though. I might actually really enjoy it, or I might really dislike it when I read the next chapter and then binge read through the thing to put everything together, like how you would with a TV show when you watch it episode by episode, and then when you get it, you binge watch it, you know. We'll see. Until then, this is the Gaming Reader. I hope y'all have a good day, good night, afternoon, whatever time frame y'all watching this, whenever y'all are watching this. I just hope y'all have a good one, and I'll see y'all guys in the next one. Peace out, and God bless y'all.